Well, welcome back to Loaded Landscapes. My name's Simon Plant, and today we're going to be looking at manually stitching panoramics. Okay, so the first thing we should ask ourselves is maybe why? Why won't these images stitch? Well, this could be numerous reasons for that. Maybe you change the focus in between frames. Maybe you change the aperture between the frames, which would mean that the images won't match, and it'd be very hard for the software to try and stitch them together. Maybe the focal length you use is a bit too wide. It used to be that with wide-angle lenses, because of the distortion that they have, especially towards the edges of the frame, it would mean the software again just couldn't stitch the stuff. Having said that, the modern software, certainly that in Lightroom for panoramic stitching, is fantastic, and there's not many images I don't think that it would have trouble with. Saying that, I shot these on a tripod. I also allow plenty of overlap between frames, which is another thing you need to do to ensure the software's got plenty of real estate to work with. So I've done all the right things here, but there's obviously something about these images that the software doesn't like. Now, maybe because there's movement in the waves here, maybe that's thrown it out. Who knows? I'm a bit perplexed, but whatever the reason, it means that I've got two options open to me at the moment. One is to forget it, and the other one is to take these into Photoshop from Lightroom and do a manual stitch on them, which is exactly what we're going to do today. So we're back in Lightroom. So what I've done with these images, I've basically adjusted the one on the left here and got that looking the way I want it to, and then apply the same settings to the image on the right. Now, because of the sky, it's a wide angle, and there's obviously a lot of great graduation from the bright area here where the sun's setting to the darker areas. That's not going to obviously match entirely for your exposure, so I need to balance that out, which is what I've done. I've balanced it out the best I can. If in doubt, I would suggest that you look more towards the foreground areas and not worry about the sky. The reasons will become evident because the problem we're going to have with this image, with stripping it together, is going to be the sky and the graduation of the sky. It's going to be very hard to blend those. So that maybe have to be left to a second part of the video. I don't know. Let's see how we get on. I don't want to make this video too long. So that's the first thing. So I've got these images looking fairly good. I now want to open them in Photoshop, so I'm going to right click, edit in, and I want to open as layers in Photoshop. So that's that's the option we choose here, and those will open in Photoshop stacked on top of each other, and then we just need to adjust that to get our panoramic. Okay, so those have opened in Photoshop in layers, which is what we wanted. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. We need to grab the crop tool, and we need to drag our canvas out about double to what it is at the moment. So I'm going to have to zoom out quite a bit. Something like that should do us. Enter, and that's just extending the canvas. And then I need to grab the right hand side of the image with the move tool and drag it out this way. So now we've got enough room to be playing around with. So actually what we'll do, we'll just recrop this down a bit now. Now I know I've got enough. Allow a little bit of bleed, like so. So that's the first part. Okay, so now we need to move these and start to kind of overlap them and get them to try and line up somehow. It's always going to be a personal call, and depending on the image, which or which side of the frame you move. I'm going to move this side across. I do quite like these waves, but I just think it's going to be easier to keep the sea a bit more placid looking than to try and then have to maybe retouch waves across here. And I'm not particularly worried about the waves, so that's my call for this one. Might be right, might be wrong. So I'm going to grab that layer, which is this top one, and with the move tool, I'm just going to drag it across roughly, and I'm kind of looking where these rocks are here. That's kind of the point that I'm looking to kind of blend these somewhere. Now, you may need to drop the opacity down. If they kind of, we won't be doing this if they match really well, but sometimes if they do match quite well, you can use difference and that can help you line stuff up a bit, but I'm kind of guessing that may not work with this image, but we'll give it a go. It just makes things easier to view in difference mode, and it will help us to a point. So let's see if we just get these matching up a little bit. So I'm going by the rocks in the middle here, this rock, and that's probably the best I'm going to get with this. So let's go back to normal mode, and we've got the opacity dropped down again, and I don't think that's going to be too bad. Okay, so let's leave it there. I don't think we're going to get much better than that. Next thing I want to do is add a layer mask. So go down here, add layer mask. Then I'm going to get the gradient tool. Okay, we want the linear gradient, this first one, and the gradient we want is the foreground to transparent. Now the reasons I have this one as opposed to foreground to background is that with the foreground to background, you can make a pass on it, and then if you decide it's not quite right, you want to move it across a bit more, you're going to basically just keep replacing that gradient. With foreground to transparent, you can actually keep adding to the gradient, if that makes sense. Let me show you how. So I want black in the foreground, and I'm just going to hold the shift key, keep my gradient straight, and just drag across like so. Okay. Now I've still got a line there. Now if I want to come over again, it'll just add to that gradient. It won't replace a gradient, which it would do if you had foreground to background selected. So that is why I select foreground to transparent. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. There's still a bit of a line there, but you know, it's never going to be perfect. What we need to do now, at the moment, it looks pretty good, but I'm sure if we zoom in, we're going to see a few problems arising. We have, there's a bit of ghosting here. So this is where it's going to take a little bit of time and patience. You need to now come in and manually paint in or paint away certain parts of the layer. So I'm going to have a paintbrush with foreground set to a black for now. I'm going to set my flow down quite low, about 4%, and I'm just going to paint in this part of the rock here, like so. Now, the good thing is, we make a mistake, we can come back and paint that away. That's not a bad place to be there. This has gone a bit dark, so I'm going to press the X key to swap the swatches around. I'm now painting with white, and I'm going to come back in and paint this back with white. Now, what you want to avoid here is soft, mushy edges. You want nice, crisp edges, okay? So that's quite important. So that's not looking too bad at the moment. Much better than I thought it was going to be. So it's mainly these edges at the moment I'm interested in getting those looking right. In theory, the interior here should be easier to deal with. That's not looking too bad. That's a bit ghosted, so I'm going to paint with white and make sure all the details in there. And my advice is, once you've got the edges looking good, you can perhaps turn the flow up quite a bit. Like so. I don't want to bore you with all this because it is a bit laborious. But by using the layer mask and the brush, you can come in and get that looking as good as you require. So just going to Alt or Option click on the mask, have a look at the mask. That's not looking too bad. So that's what we have to do. We have to gradually go around and just check where it blends. And once that's all done, it should flow quite nicely. Now, it's not looking too bad. The problem, again, we're going to have with this image is going to be the horizon. You can see, pardon the fun, you can see on the sea, the horizon here is going all over the place. So we need to sort that out. And this is where it gets a bit tricky. Also, with as I said earlier, with just bring out that with images with graduating skies, finely graduated skies. This was shot at dusk. So the sun had gone down. Got this beautiful graduation of sky. This one doesn't look too bad at the moment, but sometimes trying to blend these two skies together is just a nightmare. You can do it, but it can take literally hours, and it never looks quite right. So sometimes we have to either replace the sky or do some manual painting of the sky to make it blend properly. Now, I have done another video on that, if memory serves me right, but if we need to do that, then we'll do this on this image, but we may have to do a second part. But at the moment, it's not looking too bad, but I do need to sort out this horizon. So we've got to sort out this horizon, and we don't need to go all the way across, but we do need to bridge the gap here and make it kind of line up again. There's a couple of ways we could do this, but I think the easiest way to try this is to take a part of the horizon from over here, which isn't going to match exactly because obviously the sky's darker there. We'll get back to the old sky thing again. But it might just give us enough horizon just to bridge. We can perhaps blend it in just to get the part we need joining up. So we're going to get the we'll get the marquee tool. Just going to see what I need here. And I'm going to take probably more than I need. It's always a good thing. So I'm going to drag it right across. Oops. Try that again. Right across here. And the reason I'm taking more than I need is it, again, just helps me blend this in a bit better. I'm just going to take that off there. Make sure the image is selected, not the mask, but the actual image. Command or Control C to copy. Command or Control V to paste, and we should have a new horizon here. I'm now gonna just see if I can't move this across and see if I can just somehow blend these two to match up. Might need to drop the opacity a little bit. So I'm gonna try that. I'm now gonna increase the opacity to 100%. I'm going to add a layer mask, and with the gradient tool again, I'm just going to start dragging this across like so. Let's see if I can't just gradually get this in the right spot. Let's bring that back in a little bit. And it is just trial and error. And once you got to a certain point, then it's probably best to resort to the good old paintbrush and just start to paint it in. So let me just get rid of some of this down the bottom. I'm using quite a low flow still, so that I can just do it bit by bit. Not looking too bad at the moment. And of course, great thing about working on a mask is that if we do mess it up, we can go back over it. Okay, let's just turn this off and on. Okay, that's not looking too bad. It's certainly better than it was. And with a little bit more work, we can make that, I'm sure we can make this work for us. So I'm going to carry on doing that for a second because obviously you can see what I'm doing. It takes a bit of time to get it blended exactly. So we'll pop back in a minute and I'll show you where we're at. Okay, so after much brushing and manipulating, we've got this in a much better state. It's a matter of just obviously trying to blend the transitions. This top layer now is not really doing a lot that we worked on. Most of the work is now come from manipulating this layer mask. That's where I've done much of the painting, and you can see that there. So actually, I think we can just delete this because it's not really doing much to help at all, so that's going to be dumped down there. So most of the paint work that we've done is done on this mask. So what we're going to do now is still not perfect, but it is much better than it was. It's got a bit dark here. I'm not going to worry about this bit in the sky at the moment because, as I said to you earlier, it might mean we've got to replace the sky. So I'm just want to get the horizon looking, better and go from there. So what I'm going to do now is just add a curves adjustment layer. And I hold down Command Alt and G, or Control Option G, and that creates a clipping mask. And I'm just going to lighten that part of the mask where we've been painting there, like so. And that just again helps with the blending a little bit. As I said, it's still not exactly perfect, but we can obviously rectify that if need be in the next part. So far, so good. It was always going to be tricky, as I said, with the horizons and the sky. The sky actually not looking too bad, and I reckon we might get away with not having to replace that. But at the moment, it's just a matter of just making things blend well together and avoiding any little marks and transparent areas which you can often get on the mask. So there's a bit more here, as we see. And that needs to be painted away, so get back brush again, make that a bit smaller, flows down to 9%, and just come around the edges of that and just make sure the edges are nice and sharp, like so. Just attention to detail, coming quite close, maybe 100% or even further if need be. And then you just got to find a good area to stop. If you can't find a good area to stop, my advice is this: make your brush nice and hard and create your own. So if you're going on and on, you can't find a good transition point to stop at, just harden your brush up and just create your own area. Even come in a little bit, like so. So as you can see, it's much more fiddlier than doing it automatically for you, but it is possible, but you just need to spend a bit of time doing it. So that's where we are at the moment. Okay, so I've had a few minutes with the image just looking over it, and I've cropped it down and cropped the excess canvas off it. And I actually think we're going to get away with this sky, but there is a few little marks here. So the compromise is, what I'm going to do is, rather than replacing the sky, because it doesn't really warrant that, I'm just going to try and blend in and add a nice transition here in the sky area. Because it does look a little bit clunky to me, and it's very difficult when you're retouching something at 100%. You're very conscious of things, whereas somebody else might come along, look at the image, and not see anything wrong, but I can see it, so I need to address it. So the easiest way to do that, you could get the clone stamp tool out if you wanted to and try and retouch that, but from experience it's no fun, and it's going to be very, very hard to do well, just because of the fine graduation of tone in there. So what I'm going to do is add an empty layer on top, get the paintbrush tool, and we're going to paint it. We're actually going to paint over the area. We want to zoom. We don't want to zoom in too far. We want to be able to see what we're doing, and we want to sort of make the brush bigger than it needs to be, because we can always paint it back, but we want to try and get that nice smooth transition. So going to have my flow down to, let's say, 4%. There you go. And we're going to sample the sky. So there's just a bit of a patch here, so I need to kind of blend that. So I'm just going to try and sample something above on the picture, and I'm just going to gradually just blend that in, like so. There's before, there's after, so that's working out quite nicely. It's very subtle, but it's working. And the same up here a bit, and just do it until you feel you've got the balance right, like so. And that didn't need much at all, and I'm quite surprised at that. So there we go. I'm actually quite pleased with that. There's before, there's after. So we've just sort of kind of smoothed out that transition to make it look a bit more believable. Sometimes what you have to do as well, especially with C can be a real pain to do a panoramic with. Sometimes you'll have, you'll find a situation where the waves are breaking here, but in the other half your image, it might not line up, and the other wave might be breaking in a different position. It just looks clunky. So sometimes you have to come in and retouch and clone, use the clone stamp tool just to kind of extend that wave. And bits and pieces like that. In this image, it's not been too bad. So actually, I think I'm pretty pleased with that. There's before, there's after on the sky. That's the main problem I have with this image. Again, make sure when you're doing this, you go over it 100%. Just checking the transitions where the two bits join. And because we've got quite a bit of overlap on this, it's actually worked out quite well. I have spotted another little problem there. And this is why it's good to keep turning off these layers. is where this joins, but actually it doesn't look too bad. So you could perhaps leave that, but being fussy as I am, I'm just going to try and make that look a bit more realistic, like so. Okay, as I said, make sure that your edges are nice and sharp. That's the most important thing on that. One thing I should add is sometimes when you do this technique with your paint, you sometimes need to go in and just add a little bit of noise to the painted area just to make it blend in with the rest of the image. And to do that, I'm just going to right click, convert to smart object, and then go to filter, noise, add noise. And generally, you probably only need maybe half a pixel, maybe even less, depending on the image. Click OK. We can just zoom in and have a look, and if it's need a bit more, you can obviously quite easily go back in and readjust that and add a bit more noise. But I've just added a tiny little bit. We haven't put a lot of paint on there at all, really, so it shouldn't be an issue. But you may need to do that if you find that it looks a little bit odd. So I think we've finished here. So let's give you an idea. It hasn't taken that long. It's just fiddly, and it's the brushwork that takes time, getting the transitions to work. And with an image like this with the horizon, it's never going to line up exactly with wide-angle lenses. So you need to pay a lot of attention to that. But if you can master that, then the manual stitching is not really a major issue. It just takes a bit of time and patience. Anyway, Christmas is coming, so if I don't speak to you before then, I hope you have a great Christmas break, and I hope to catch you in the new year. Cheers for watching.